Welcome back to the Youngstown Penguin Football Podcast. I'm your host, Sal Guardo. With me, as always, are my co-hosts, former defensive lineman Kyle Searle, former director of football operations Dan Kopp, and the recent new Hall of Famer Kurt Hess, who had a great ceremony about a week or two ago that we were all able to attend. Curdy, we appreciate these shout outs, even though I think you were listed off half the roster, but we still appreciate it. Moving on, there's been a lot that's happened between now and the last time we recorded, and we have a bunch of guests with us today as well. So we're going to go straight through it. First, of course, you can follow us on Whitetown Penguin Podcast on Instagram, that Kurt monitors. We are live on YouTube live tonight. That Searle is monitoring the chat. Please follow, give us a like, give us a comment, share with anyone you may see or know. Anyway, diving right into it, we're going to go to Kurt because a lot of Youngstown coaches out there have been doing great things and are a part of the coaching carousel that seems completely nuts recently. Curdy.
Yeah, to start out, you got to give a massive shout out to Donald DeLisio, safeties coach with the Kansas City Chiefs. I tell Donald all the time, being a Bengals fan, it's always bittersweet for me to see them have so much success, but the silver lining with the Chiefs and Pat Mahomes winning another Super Bowl title is Donald gets an opportunity to get another ring. So congratulations to Coach DeLisio. Coach Wolf heading from Kentucky back to Alabama, back to Kentucky in a little controversial move, some might say. Coach Wolf has landed back at Kentucky. And then our most recent guest, our offensive coordinator, while we were there, quarterbacks coach, Coach Montgomery, got the offensive coordinator job at UMass, which recently, from a social media perspective, I saw, we could save this for another time, but it sounds like the UMass rivalry with the University of Connecticut might be the worst rivalry of all time. So giving Shane a little bit of crap there, but good luck this year, Coach Montgomery, offensive coordinator at UMass. I know that they play at Georgia.
Yes, and as y'all saw, UMass is now joining the MAC after this fall. So UMass to the MAC 2025, which is familiar territory for Shane. So congrats to him. Speaking of coaching carousels, the Penguins of Youngstown State have had a little bit of turnover ourselves. Flip it over to Dan Kopp for an update on who's leaving, who's new faces that we're going to see this fall.
Yeah, thanks, Sal. Probably most of our listeners know Jamal Brown, our DC, left for Mercer. I'm kind of a little surprised by that move, but they promoted within John Hanline, who was the assistant DC coach and linebackers, is now the new DC. We also lost Evan Harvey, who was our special teams coordinator, did a really good job. He ended up at Mississippi State. Can't fault him there, making a jump up. And I think we're still waiting. I have not heard anything official on who's taking that special teams job. You know, I'd be interested to see if maybe someone within the conference ends up with us. But that's kind of what's going on the staff. And I don't know if we mentioned Carm Brasillo. We had Carm on the show who was with the Raiders when he was on the show. He's now with the Giants. So shout out to Coach Carm. He's now with the New York Football Giants. So that's a little quick update on the coaching staff, Sal.
Thank you. As I mentioned, we have a few guests here, and we're going to transition to two of our three guests on today. But these two guys coming from the equipment room, I'm glad they're on because a lot of former players all have a connection with him. And if they don't, they have a connection with Carm, which they have a very deep connection to. So they're definitely a complete different department that's huge to the success. But I'm going to transition so Searle could give them a proper introduction here.
Yeah. Thanks, Sal. Normally, this is a family-friendly show. I'm just going to warn everyone that's listening or watching now on YouTube. This can go any of which three directions, all right? So just if you have children staying up late at night, just put them to bed now. But we got living legends. Their first team all-conference, 4 years running in the equipment room. They're following in the footsteps of the late, great Carm Cassis, like Sal said. They are loving, caring, and very generous. They are Tim Gallo and Alvy Armstrong.
What's up? I never do it.
Yes, sir.
There it is. There it is. Sorry on the delay. Yeah, Timmy, Alvin, we'll give it to you guys real quick. Just tell us basically, because I really never knew this myself, how y'all ended up at YSU. I guess the road that brought you there. How long have you been with YSU, and what's life like now for y'all?
Well, I've been at YSU for almost 22 years. I actually replaced Alvy. When Alvy was the assistant there, he was leaving to go to Southern. um, I worked at John Carroll Division III school up by Cleveland, and I had a lot of student workers who were from the area, from Mooning, from Ursuline, and I kind of found out about Alvy's departure and then looking for somebody, and I applied, and the rest is history, I guess.
Best decision you ever made, right, Tim?
Absolutely, 100%. I would have never met you.
Exactly what I was fishing for.
I mean, outside of YSU, I mean, YSU's been a big part of my life for the last 20 some years, and before Alvy came back, it was I took care of all the sports, and didn't have much of an outside life. I got married about 5 years ago. So I mean, my biggest thing is spending the most time I can with my wife, and that's about it.
Oh, sounds good, Tim.
Thanks, Alvy.
Yeah. So I started as a student manager in 1990. Obviously under Carm. We had another student along that time. His name was Dan Kopp. Really didn't like the guy, but whatever. So I was there. I graduated. Eventually graduated. Drove around the university enough. Gave them enough money, and they finally decided to give me a diploma. Said I graduated. I didn't feel any smarter. I still don't. Probably not. That's probably why I'm still there. But uh, became the Carm's assistant, and then after the 2001 season, I had an opportunity to become the head equipment manager at Southern Illinois. Went there, was there for 7 years. Went to Northern Illinois for 3 years, and then Carmen we all stayed in touch, and he said, "Hey, I'm getting ready to retire. Do you want to come back?" And so, given the opportunity, I came back, and I came back in April of 12, and been here since. And like I said, I take care of football now, pretty much primarily, and Tim does the rest of it. So we just roll along and keep going on. Wait till what next season happens. Outside of YSU, I met my bride in Southern Illinois. We got married in 2011. You know, it. I go to auctions in the weekends now that I have weekends free during the off season, and do little antique mall things and things like that to keep my hobby, and just getting ready to pass. I'm closer to the end than the beginning, like Tim. So getting ready to transition to the sunset.
Nice.
Wait
Well,
until I get some more gear before y'all take off.
right.
No chance.
That's a nice top, by the way, Kurt.
Cheryl got this one made for me. On that
oh,
sweater.
oh, okay, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
It's not really
Had that made.
It's not really a question, but just if y'all can, because I was kind of cell shocked. I remember my freshman year seeing all the prep that goes behind road trips and driving there and everything to go, and not the I guess bore with detail to detail, but I guess give the listeners an appreciation for all that y'all do for a road trip game and what goes behind it to set up for it, and when y'all do it and when you start.
Well, we start really when as the season gets started, as the season approaches, we start getting ready to make road trips. Obviously, this year we open up at Villanova, where we just finished up at. So this is a unique situation. So, but uh, as camp winds down, we start going into game mode and things like that. You know, uh, Now we have a semi. We PI&I Trucking made that available to us, and we can't thank them enough. They supply the driver, JW, great guy. He shows up when we need to, takes the semi to where we need to, and puts it in some tight spots and brings it on home. Makes my life a lot easier. But we'll start packing trunks during camp initially, but then as the game weeks go on, normally once we get to a game week and the season gets going, we got a couple back-to-back road trips this year, and so we probably won't even unpack the truck too much. But typically we'll just start packing in the room and things, get all the trunks packed and updated, and then Thursday, anymore it's a lot easier since we practice in the morning because they'll get off the field Thursday morning and we're done with everything, so we can start packing right then and there. Um, we'll start off. We're probably close now to, I don't know, probably five tons or so of stuff with all our trucks, with all our trunks, with all the trainers' trunks and all the stuff we take on the road with us. It's probably about 5 tons of stuff now, which it's nothing for the semi, but it's pretty quick to load up, especially after a game. Usually we are in and out about an hour after the game ends. The truck is packed and ready to go back on the road. But we set it up, put everything in there. Players pack their bags after Thursday practice. We'll go through them, check them as we get them on the truck. It's then we get to the stadium. Depending on the situation, we try to unload on Friday night if we can. Sometimes there might be a high school game at the stadium or something else. Depending on where we go that we can't set up Friday. But hopefully we can set up Friday. Then we'll go out to dinner and get to the hotel. Back to the hotel around 10 o'clock at night and go to bed and wake up and get to the stadium 6 hours before the game, before kickoff. Um, you know, as you know, we'll put unpack the players' bags, hang up the helmet, hang up the jerseys, put the jerseys on the shoulder pads. It's all pretty typical stuff anymore in college football, and then wait for the team to arrive. Um, uh, yeah, that's about it then. In a nutshell, I mean, it's it's really more fun to watch after the game when you're trying to get everything in there and trying to get out of there, and especially if they make a plane play.
All right. And for the listeners, when the team shows up on the road and they show up on Saturday for the game, it really feels like you're walking into your home locker because everything's already segmented, laid out, ready to go with your name tagged. So they do a lot when they prep for it. Curdy.
Yeah, so Tim and Alvy, I mean, kind of a two-part question. But being a quarterback, I spent a lot of times just hanging out on the sideline with some of your student equipment managers. Who are some of your favorite equipment managers, and what are you guys looking for in a student assistant?
I mean, back when I was doing, when I was doing football, it's kind of funny you bring that question up because he actually stopped in today. We had a student manager by the name of E.J. O'Neill, and he was a good one. I mean, they're not all good, but most of them are good. I mean, it's not rocket science that we do. You just have to have common sense. You have to actually like working in sports. You have to be personable because you're dealing with kids your own age. You're dealing with men and women that are older than you as coaches and administrators. So you have to be personable. You have to be respectful. But basically, someone who has common sense and being able to solve a problem if Alvy and I aren't around. But EJ sticks out. Obviously, Quinn Puskar, who started out at football and then transitioned over to the Olympic sports with me. But we've had many. I mean, practices are a lot different from the times that I did it because we were able to get through a practice with maybe one or two managers. Now you can't do that. You have to have almost 10 people out there to run practice. So it's a little different now. But Alvy?
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously we've had, and Tim's right. I mean, you for the most part, most of our kids are pretty good anymore. I mean, to be in there, we can usually weed out some. Usually they'll weed themselves out pretty quick. It's long hours. You don't get paid for all of them, and it's a minimum wage job. It is what it is. But if you enjoy being around sports and just having a chance to, it's a and all most of you know that it's a pretty loose atmosphere in the equipment room. So you can't say that about all workplaces. And most of the kids figure that out really once they leave. It's like, geez, we had it pretty good when we worked here, and we try to make it that way. I've been around for, I've had a lot of good students here and other schools I've been at, and you know, and we hit, you know, starting back, we when I first started out, Doug Chandler was in charge of. He was the head student basically when I started out, and we had Dave Stoops, and Dan came along there, and we had Tony Montana and geez, and then Jimmy McLaughlin, who's now with the Browns, has been with the Browns for 20 plus years. Um, I had some good kids. We had some good kids there. Roger, and of course, then he came back, and Tim had a good group with Dan Doherty, who still thinks he's our friend, but we try to blow him off because he's not really our friend. But we have to make him feel good sometimes.
I forgot about
And
I forgot about Doc.
I was
Oh,
going
I'm
to mention
sorry.
him if you two
Yeah,
forgot
I
about
tried
him.
to
Yeah, I forgot. Sorry, Dan.
I try to forget about him too. Every now and then he texts me trying to be my friend. I try to blow him off, but he's sad. We like to pat him on the head, make him feel good, and we'll send him on his way. And the current kids I got now with Joe Scott, who's a great grandson of Chubby Scott, who was the original equipment manager at YSU. We had the D'Antonio family. We've had three. We're on our third D'Antonio, and we've had two Christies, and Tim's had two Christie sisters working for him. So I mean, it could go on and on. Paxton Rumbus, there's just a slew of kids. I'm forgetting some, and I'll get called out on it later on text. But for those that stick around 1 or 2 years, or 3 years, or even 4 years, they it's good to work with them. They figure it out, and like Tim mentioned Quinn, and it's we got Ed. Ed right now, and Zach and Joe, and there's my main three, and we got Cassie and Nick also. So we were in practice with 5 people, and my GA Dan, and so we have 7 people in the field now, and it's humping. I mean, because you need one person on the clock. In the fall, you'll need 2 people. You'll need 4 people on chains, and you have to have at least 2 people spotting the ball. So it's I'd love to get 10 to 12 people on the field, but it's hard to find people to work, as anybody in the world knows. It's just showing up every day is a task for some people.
Yeah, no doubt. And Tim, I appreciate you with the EJ shout out, because I remember Wolf's first year, EJ had to spot that thing for 2-minute drill at the end of practice.
Yep.
This dude was hauling. He was probably faster than any of the other players out there, going from right hash to right center to left hash. And then I think it was Anthony who came after him. Did we call him Righty? Was it Righty? Remember Anthony?
Anthony.
Anthony was his first name.
No, that was righty, or was it righty or middle?
His case, man. I forget what his last name was.
I don't remember. Anthony.
But EJ, he had it down, man. He had it down. So
Yeah,
I appreciate that. Thank you, guys. Go ahead, Coach.
Yeah. First question for Alvy, and you mentioned it earlier on the show, and probably a lot of people don't know this, that you were at Southern Hill for as long as you were, and we talk about the Valley on this show, about other teams and schools in this conference. So you worked for a guy who was a heck of a coach, Jerry Kill. So I think if you could tell us just quickly a little bit about Southern and your time there, because when you were there, if I'm right, and you guys remember, Southern Hill was kind of the team. The Dakotas hadn't been really, where they are now. So you were at a place that was kind of the team to beat. So tell us a little bit about Jerry Kill and maybe your time at Southern.
Well, it was interesting when we first got there because if you remember, Dan, how Tress used to emulate Georgia Southern and how he wanted to be like Georgia Southern when Tress was starting to, when Tress was first starting, he wanted to be like Georgia Southern and so it was interesting to me because Jerry Kill wanted to model his program off of YSU, and he'd constantly ask me, what would YSU do, what would Tress do, this, that, and the other. So it was interesting to be on the other side of that. But Jerry Kill's a hell of a head coach. I can't say enough good about that. He's a great human being. Uh, but he's very down to earth, and he will MF you when you're wrong, and then he'll come back 10 minutes later and tell you he loves you, and it's all good. I mean, and I still talk with several people, from Southern Illinois, and it's and we all and we and actually Tim was talking to his past the girl who just was at New Mexico, who's at New Mexico State now, who worked for Jerry before he left after this past year, and she loves him. She loves working for him, and me and Paulina will talk, and what the old man do today? Well, he's ran on about this, and he's like, yeah, did you get fired today? No, not today, but we all been fired. He fired everybody on that staff 100 times, but it's okay. But it was interesting. We had some, obviously we had some great games with YSU. Um, and when I first got down there, Southern Illinois was terrible. The stadium was a piece of shit, and it's gone now. There's a new stadium. It's a great stadium. He helped build that stadium, turn that program around. The interesting story was he did his job interview to get that job. They was actually thinking about canceling the program entirely because it was that down at that point. And on his interview, they showed him the stadium at night. They just drove past it. There's a stadium. Okay, good, we're done. And that's the best time it looked. It looked best at night when all the lights were off. They didn't have lights on the stadium at that point either. So he got lights put on the stadium.
Yeah.
He could have night games. So he got a lot done. Just he's a very personal guy, great football knowledge, and he'd get the most out of everybody. And, looking back to all the friends I still have, I still know from Southern, how many people, and it's like Jim Tressel. You can see how many people have in those teams have succeeded in business and life, and whatever they went on to accomplish after college. So just so many positive role models that he's put out in the world.
Cool.
But
Yeah.
it was interesting times. When we were my first year there, we were 4-8, I think. Yeah, I think it was 4-8. But we beat Western Illinois on the last play of the game. We beat them 54-52, and they was top 10 in the country. That's when Western was good. And and the next week we beat a ranked Northern Iowa team, and then we just didn't have the depth. And by the time we got to Youngstown, we was under our third tailback and this, that, and the other. But and we lost that game. But leading up to the game, Jerry would, he always wanted to make the kids play for something. So he called that bowl the Alvey Bowl because it was Youngstown versus Southern Illinois. So, it grew after that. So every year we play Youngstown, it'd be the Alvey Bowl, the Alvey Bowl, the Alvey Bowl. I think it was in 2007 or so, and he was notorious for giving. He gave the kid game balls. We got a game ball for that win against Western Illinois. Was the first time they beat them in 18 years when we beat them in 02. But I think it was 07. We won the Alvey Bowl. He got everybody a ball, says Alvey Bowl champions, whatever year, and put the score on it. He was good like that for doing things like that. And so obviously when I followed him to Northern Illinois, the Alvey Bowl went away for a couple of years, and then when I came back, the trainer he was still there, and I came back in 2012. We go down there and we lose. We lose the Alvey Bowl, and at that point there's not too many people aware. There's a few people. There's a few of the freshmen that I left, and they're seniors now, and I was aware of me and a few son of a gun. The trainer after we lost, he's about a month or two later that I got a package in the mail from the trainer. It was an Alvey Bowl T-shirt with the score, and we that we lost, and so it was it goes on this day. There's still a few people at Southern that know about it and laugh about it. And I think one time about 3 or 4 years ago, we was down there for their alumni weekend. So it was good for me, obviously, and even better because we won that weekend. But it's it's always an interesting game because you want to win, but at the same time, it's like you feel for the other team because you're so close to both teams.
Yeah, we're not going to let you brag about that too much more because there were times the Alvey Bowl you got the Gatorade bath at the end of the game before Jerry Kill did. And we were all like, "What the hell, man? You really you became a traitor." So we got to end that topic because you were beating us too many times. So we got to move on to Tim here.
Good games.
This will be my last question for a while. But Tim, you spent so much time there, obviously in the room and around so many student athletes. So I was kind of curious. It's kind of like picking a favorite equipment guy, but who's an athlete or two that, other than Kurt Hess and Kyle Searle, of course, but that you really, that you're like, wow, just watching them's been amazing. So, if you have one or two athletes, a male or female or something that really jumps out at you in all these years you've been there.
Thanks for making me sound old there, Dan. But stop it. I've seen a lot of good athletes in all of our sports, and I reminisce every time the Hall of Fame comes around and the class gets announced, and I think back about other classes and athletes that haven't gotten in yet, and but a couple stand out, and I'll pick a couple from football that I thought were other than the two sitting here, which are my boys. Marcus Mason. I mean, he could take over a game. I've seen it. I've seen 298-yard touchdowns at Western Illinois. He could just run the ball. I mean, he was really good. He could get through the smallest of holes, but before you know it, he's got 150 yards and 4 touchdowns. And on the defensive side of the ball, I mean, I thought he was probably one of the best linebackers I've ever seen play at anywhere I've been is James Terry. I mean, he could just, other than I was around for London Fletcher when he was at John Carroll, but other than that, James Terry was probably the best defensive player I've ever seen. Another one, basketball player, KP Perry. I mean, he was just a great athlete. I mean, there's been so many. I mean, the female side is loaded with good athletes in all our sports. I mean, it's ridiculous how good we've been in the past. But yeah.
Thanks, man. But those are good answers. Kyle, I'll flip that over to you. Thanks, guys.
All right, back to football and road trips and the shenanigans that you guys like to get on. What is your favorite and least favorite road trip to plan for? And that could be with like just the travel, the locker room, where you guys like to go get your adult beverages or whatever the case may be. So what trip do you least look forward to, and what trip do you most look forward to when you see it on the calendar?
Well, I mean, and I think you guys, everybody's been there will agree with me. The worst place, and obviously, you go to the one-offs, you go to your Pitts and your Ohio States, and those are cool. And it is what it is. But obviously, when you get to the conference, you know where you're going, so you know what to expect. And so, obviously, for those that've been there, and no one was happier than any of it has ever been there. You always hated going to Western Illinois. I mean, the locker room was decent size, but everybody knows the walk. You got to make the walk out to the field. It's a small stadium. It's an outdated stadium. It's everybody. Tell me if you guys said you enjoyed going to Western Illinois. I know you guys are lying off your teeth.
No, I think we talked about it extensively.
Yes,
at one point.
And
many points,
and it's really and when they said they was going to leave and go to the OVC, DC, there was such relief among the equipment managers. I mean, the equipment managers in the conference, we all have a little group meet chat, and there was so much happiness in that day when they found out they was leaving.
Did you guys just like
and
boot the Western
obviously
Ill guy
Western,
out? Did you just like remove the Western Ill guy from the
they
chat?
boot themselves out. They did.
Oh, okay.
He left. He left just before the season started, actually, and they just now hired a new person. But so now everybody sort of dreads their replacement in Murray State because they're not quite up to stuff yet. So that's the current sort of bummer in the conference. For me, obviously, going to Southern is the one I enjoy the best. Um, I'm familiar with the surroundings. I know my way around. Plus, I know all the places to eat. So I mean, we'll get not the Missouri State. Missouri State's a good place to eat. I mean, but the locker room's not as good and nice things like that. But for me, Southern Illinois, easy load in, load out, good post game meal with the barbecue place. Was Friday night. We'll load in, and then we either go to a place called the last couple of times we went to Giant City Lodge, and then every Friday night they have an all you can eat fried chicken and catfish dinner. Can't beat that. And then in the morning you get up to go to Mary Lou's to have breakfast there and head over to the stadium. So just the familiarity. So Southern for me is the one road trip I truly enjoy.
Mary Lou's. I miss Mary Lou's. Yeah. Oh. Well, before Southern built this new stadium, though, that was a piece of poop. Also, the locker room
absolutely.
underneath the stadium. Oh my Lord! And then they gave us the home side when they switched, and it was a mile. It wasn't a mile, but it was a long walk. Ill State. You have to walk freaking.
Ill State, yeah, Ill State's a bit of a walk, yeah.
Until the Dakotas came into. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Ill State, you don't have the gymnastics room.
Oh yeah, that's right. I mean, until the Dakotas came, the Dakotas came into the league, we were hands down the best facility around. Hands down, as far as looks, convenience, workability, and everything. But I mean, now you got the domes and stuff. But yeah, it's the stories, Dan. It's
some parts
the
of the domes are nice, but then again, setting those headsets up to the small domes. None of those domes have an elevator that goes all the way to the press box, so you got to carry the headsets upstairs. Yeah. And that's not a true joy.
Well, before I get into the Mike question, we have Mike with us, who we'll introduce later. But just Mike, I don't know if you have anything you want to optional. If you want to ask these guys anything or not.
Yeah, sure. So, I was curious. The last two seasons, we started with like the wide decal on our helmets, and then midway through the season, we changed to those Pete ones. Curious, how long did it take to switch those out, and would you prefer if we just stick with one for the whole season?
Okay, so 2 years ago, two years ago, we're getting ready. It's like, let's do something different, yada yada yada. Because we've done a silver wide, we had a silver wide that year. 2 years ago, we did that too, and so it's like, can we do anything else? So, we had our decal company do about 3 or 4 different samples for us, and we put them on. And really, when it came down to it, when we put the big Pete on, it wasn't even close. There was nothing else even close to looking that good. And so that was the way we was going to do it. And the first helmet, it took an hour to do the helmet. So obviously, being that we only have one shell, it's a practice helmet, it's our game helmet, it's no other color, it is the one shell we got. It's going to be a project turning that around. So we got the decals in, and they're on sheets of 2, and it's like, and I was thinking, most times when they come in sheets, well, obviously when you're dealing with a Y, the sheets of 2, you just you take a sheet and you put the Y on each side. Done. I didn't even think to look. So we was going to do it earlier in the season 2 years ago, and we went to start and realized we only had the left side. We didn't have any right side penguins, so it's like we can't do it. It was actually just after Labor Day, so it's like I'm trying to call. It's like it's Sunday, and it's like next day is Labor Day, and it's like, oh, I can't get a hold of this guy till Tuesday, and to have and no, I says we can't do it, and so we pushed it down the road, and then we switched over, and so when we switch over, we figured it out. We're down to about 20 minutes of helmet, 15, 20 minutes of helmet now to do it all. But the little tricks we've learned in doing it. But it when we switch over, we start Sunday, and we start with the kickers, the quarterbacks, the wilds. People that don't get hit, and we start with their helmets, and we work our way close to the ball as the week goes on. So by the time Thursday's practice done, we're ready to start O line, D line, the helmets that really get messed up, so they'll be fine for the weekend. But so yeah, obviously we brought the Penguin out. It went over very well, and so last year it's like, what do we do? Do we go full time Pete? Do we bring the Y back? And it's like, because and I'm partial to both. I mean, because the Y has their tradition and there's so much history behind it. So it's like, but that Big Pete looks so good, and he gets so much attention. And so we made a decision. We'll start in the Y. Take care. Take care of the older alumni base, make them happy, and then switch over. Because I mean, some people don't like the Big Pete. I know younger people do, and I like it. It looks amazing, and it's so unique on a helmet. So we will probably continue doing that, splitting the year up as long as we can. So because it's just such a draw. You can't get away from the Big Pete helmet now.
I want to see
Good,
the
good.
script. I want to see the script penguin. I tell that to you guys every time I'm in the locker room. I want to see the script penguin back at some point.
I'm getting feedback. It sounds some noise. I don't even hear what it is. I don't even listen to that stuff. We talked
It
about
gets the
doing
people
script penguin
going.
again for. We talked about doing script penguin again, so we might pull that back out. And obviously, it's going to be a while before we have an anniversary Y on there again, unfortunately. But yeah, we talked about doing script penguin again, so we might pull that back out.
I
And the
mainly
bad part
want.
is, it's like we always did that Star and Stripe penguin, Star and Stripe Y for Veterans Day, but now it's like, if we take the Big Pete off, put that on, it's great to honor the veterans and things like that. But geez, oh man,
Yeah, it's a lot
then
of
we have to
work.
put the penguins back on for the playoff runs.
Well,
So
good question.
we've been doing the smaller Ys.
Good question, Mike, because that's something that's come up often that I don't know how I forgot to leave that out. So I'm glad you mentioned the decals of these guys. Question I have really for either of you guys is more of a story time, but just because I've heard some crazy stories from other schools about under pressure situations of equipment staff. Like I remember watching a Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech game where 5 of the Virginia Tech players had to borrow Georgia Tech's practice uniforms because they didn't even have the jerseys. So crazy stuff like that happens. And then, as we all know, there's some crazy off the field stuff that I know your guys don't exactly have to play a game the next day. So they may go out on Friday nights and some stories may be better untold, but I guess it's just a good time for just a quick story time for each of y'all to tell us something that y'all seen during your YSU days.
And just so you guys know, this is the Y-Town Penguin Hokies podcast because Sal references Virginia Tech at least once a show, just for your reference.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about like stories about being under pressure and stuff, and like a story that happened, and when Dan Kopp was there, we went to wherever you go out by Vegas. What was the school?
Southern Utah.
Southern Utah. We were at Southern Utah.
God.
Utah.
I was there, Tim. That was my
I know.
second year.
I know. That's what I'm saying. You were there.
I was there.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm about to tell this story, and it's kind of an under the pressure story, but also pretty funny story. We set up the headsets, and it started raining when we started playing. I mean, it was raining. I mean, pouring, and the headsets didn't work. And I literally spent the whole game on my behind by the headsets trying to fix these headsets, and I couldn't get them to work. And John Haycock was continuously yelling my name because Danny Cops gives me so much stuff about it that literally the whole game. And I don't even think they ever really did work. And then it was just, and I'm an equipment guy. I'm not an electrician, or I don't know. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I'm just like going through the motions here, pushing buttons and unplugging cords and plugging them back in. And it's just like, and of course, first time we go to play Pitt at Heinz Field. Then we go there, all this time before the game, we go up to the press box, and this was before they had all the fancy dancy headsets that they have now. We set the headsets up there working perfectly. We go back into the locker room, we come back out, nothing but static. Now this is our first big time game. We ended up using walkie-talkies for the whole game.
What year?
And it was the first time we played Pitt. I don't know what year it was. I've been doing this way too long. But
05, I think.
Probably the
was it
Dave Long
was it
was there?
Yeah, I think he was. I think he was the head coach.
Okay.
And that's okay. You use walkie-talkies, you make do, but when you're standing on the sidelines and your head coach walks by you and just glares at you. Now, mind you, I'm the assistant equipment manager. The head equipment manager is standing right next to me, and I'm the one that's getting glared at and yelled at. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. The best time I ever had was when Bo came. Bo looked out. It was a home game. It started to rain, and Bo wanted to get the gloves changed out, and he looked at me and said something about the gloves. I said, "Hey, Alvy's right over there." I said, "I want nothing to do with it." That was it. That was the best time ever. But yeah, good.
I do remember that. I just was coming to the Southern Utah because I remember Brian Jones was our signal caller then. And I remember him, like the first drive, all the offense was looking at him, and Jones couldn't hear anything. He was just looking around. I remember Dave Elliott saying, "Your headphones not working? Take my headphones." And Dave Elliott, he didn't have a headphone the whole game. But yeah, the first drive, if it wasn't for Dave Elliott's headphones working, I don't know what the hell we were going to do. That was great.
Yeah, am I up, Sal, or are you still?
I don't know. Or Alvy, have you have any story to give? That was good though, Tim. I forgot.
I headsets. I mean, I can share stories of headsets too because it is the absolutely, you do 100 things right before the game, and it's all sound good, but then everything turns on, the scoreboard, everything turns on, then the game time, and all of a sudden you got poof, and it's like, what the hell? There was one time, and I was actually when I was at Southern Illinois, we was at Arkansas Pine Bluff, and it rained. It rained off and on, and we had run wire up to the press box, and it's laying in puddles, and all of a sudden we ended up beating them pretty bad, but it's early in the game, and all of a sudden the headsets don't work, and Jerry Kill's yelling at me to get the headsets going, What's wrong with headsets? MF and media, I'm going through there and I'm trying to find. I can't find why it won't work. So game goes on. The headsets come back on miraculously. I don't know what I did. I didn't do a damn thing, but they come back on. They're working fine. We win. It's after the game, and the OC comes to me and says, "Hey, listen, headsets were fine the entire time. We screwed up. We don't want to kill her yelling at us, so we just went silent. So that's why the headsets were fine the entire time. The headsets were fine. We just went quiet. Nobody wanted to get yelled at. So it's like, great, I'll take that one. So, but I think and Tim will tell you, and even Dan, I don't, something will break during the game. It's like all right, just come here and we'll fix it, whatever. I don't feel the pressure during the game to get things like pan. And Tim will tell you, Carm, and Dan would know, and Carm, it's something to the break, Carm would go into panic mode. It's like, and he'd be, and it'd be hysterical to watch. He'd be saying, but, I think back to really the worst, I don't know, it was bad, but so after the 2016 championship game, we get to the airport. We had the little trailer there we towed behind. Ray Hoff, great. I love Ray Hoff. He does so much for us. Can't say enough good things about him. He's driving the trailer back. He leaves. We get to the airport. Our plane's messed up. Apparently, I guess from what I understand, all the bags fell out of the top of the ceiling. They had to put all the bags back in for some reason. So we ended up sitting. We're at Love Field in Dallas for like 3-4 hours waiting for them to get this fixed. You just lose the championship game. Now you got to sit in this little airport, and because you don't fly into, you don't use the airport. You use an APO, and you're all huddled in a small area. So we're there for 3-4 hours, and finally get on the plane, and finally get back to Youngstown. And I legitimately, I think, I don't know, I got to bed maybe about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning after that, and I get a call about 7 in the morning, and it's Ray. Says, "Hey, had a good night's sleep, getting ready to go. We're getting ready to start and come back." And okay, they're like the Texas Arkansas border or whatever. Great, thanks, appreciate it. I'll talk to you later. Okay, get a call about 11 o'clock. Then get a call about 11 o'clock. It's Ray again, and he's blown 3 tires in the trailer. He's gone through all the spare tires. He's blown through 3 tires. He's sitting alongside the road outside of Little Rock, Arkansas. The trailer is too heavy. So I had a box truck at the university because we took the bags and we flew the bags down with us. It's 11 o'clock in the morning. I go to the university, park my car, get the keys to the box truck, and start driving to Little Rock, Arkansas. It's a 13.5-hour drive. I get down there. We put half the stuff in the box truck, and they got the tires replaced, and so we start driving back in this little caravan, and it's the national championships on, and we're listening out on the radio, and I got a kid with me in a pickup, and they got we're driving back. We're all tired, pissed off, and things like this, and so the kids missed the first day of class because they're still driving back from Texas, and we finally it's like 6 in the morning. We're in Akron, and it's snowing. It's just completely snowing. You can't see the road, so we're going back, all the way from Akron down to Youngstown on the 2 tire tracks on 76. We're just driving down the 2 tire tracks. We move about 30 miles an hour. You're an hour away from home. You can't even get home now at this point. We finally get there and unpack the truck the next day. So that was probably the worst road trip ever.
All right. Well, those are some legendary stories. I can still remember Tim, Southern Utah. Speaking of Carm, Sal, you guys remember as the headphones are down, John Haycock is screaming for Tim. Now, Carm is like right next to him, and he's screaming, Gallo. And everyone looks around, and there's Tim going from, he looked like, like the operator at the phones, plugging one thing in here, one thing up here, and you're laying on the grass doing this, and Coach Haycock's still screaming for you. And you were like, what do you want me to do? You were drenched. Remember, it was raining. So, quick question here. Obviously, we got to talk about the man. So, would love you guys just to give a word or two, just something quickly. I know Kyle's got to get to some YouTube live stuff, but give us a word or two about the guy we all love, our guy Carmen Cassis, and I'll start with you, Alvy. So just one or two things, and then Tim, you can go. And for all the people that love Carm, everyone on this show, and all those players, give us some things about Carm.
We can never say enough about Carm. I mean, he meant so much to us in our lives and helping us, become who we are today. it's we could tell stories all night long about that.
Mhm.
That's a separate
The
show.
thing that really stands out to me the most is he was very generous. He was a very generous person. And everybody here in this room knows about it, but and a lot of people do know about it, but it's just sometimes it's just the little things that he'd take you down to get to a meal. He'd help you out with, he'd help you out in ways you didn't even think about because he knew so many people. Um, and so you'd get in a little bit of trouble and he'd say, go down and see this person, they'll help you out, or it's he always had somebody to help you out with. If he couldn't help you out, he knew somebody could help you out. And so I think that's the one thing that lives on with all of us. He always found a way to help you out. He's always generous in one way or another. He'd drive you crazy sometimes. He would absolutely drive you crazy sometimes, but he was always very generous and willing to give whatever he could. What do you think, Tim?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, his generosity. There's so many things that man did that nobody knows about. About Thanksgiving dinners, about Christmas dinners, about taking people down to the NVR and feeding them, and he literally was my father here. I mean, he wasn't. He might have not have been around a lot, but whenever I needed him, he was always there, and he would always be willing to help me drop everything he was doing to help me. I mean, the whole family. I mean, what became my family, but uh, I learned so much from that man, and he literally was my best friend, and I literally miss him every single day.
That's awesome. We all love him, and we all miss him all the time. I think you guys nailed it with just those words. And like you said, we could tell Carm stories. We could do a podcast after dark or a Carm
God,
podcast,
yeah.
and we'd probably have to call people from all over the country because he touched so many lives and the whole Cassis family. We love him, and man, Carm's. I'm wearing a shirt tonight. One of we still have a little cigar night. Once a year in honor of him. And man, we all miss him. We love Carm. And so I appreciate you guys sharing that. And so I'll turn it over to back. I think it's over to Kyle. Sorry about that.
You guys could have told me I was muted. Carm,
It was,
what a great
it was
guy.
pretty funny.
Oh, whatever. Hey, he did it right though too. It's like freshman, it was like pulling teeth to get an extra shirt for practice. It was just like,
you
hey,
can't do that now.
you got a shirt in your locker. I don't care if it stinks. Like you're not getting a fresh one. But yeah, and dishing up them hell shells and blackened chicken at the MVR. That was always my go-to dish there. So, jumping over to YouTube, Richard Wolf is in the chat. Super fan of the show. Super fan of the program there. He just wants to say thanks to Tim and Carmen for hiring him. And then he wants to know, Tim, do you remember the first time y'all met? You remember the first time you met Richard Wolf?
Oh, I don't.
Oh, Rich, drop it in the chat.
Yeah, drop it.
And then we'll come back to that. DJ Moss, he's talking some crazy stuff over here, talking about Alvy's interview day. Alvy, does this sound familiar? He's rehabbing his shoulder with JD, and he's like talking crazy to DJ, and Moss has no idea what's going on. I have no idea what he's talking about.
I did the interview and DJ was hurt and I did the interview in the suit and JD was so pissed I wouldn't take the suit off to go out to practice. I'm out to practice suit and tie and JD's just pissed at me and then he starts he's working with DJ in his rehab and I and I don't know, I don't remember what I said. I'm sure DJ remembers more than I do, but I'm sure I was just rambling on talking some crazy stuff. I mean, really, podcast after dark. You can ask Danny Kopp about the first time he met me, and that's the story.
Okay.
I'm sure. I remember talking to DJ. We was along the visiting team sideline. I remember talking to him, but I can't remember what I said. But obviously, it made an impression on him.
It's a good thing Alvy doesn't remember what he said. We might want to leave it right at that. We might want to.
All right. Yeah. Chat's kind of dead tonight. It's just Rich and Demo.
Come
Demo
on.
says, sorry, you said you missed Mary Bell's breakfast or whatever in Missouri State or what, Southern Hill. Where was
Yeah.
it?
Southern Mary
Southern
Lou's.
Hill.
Mary Lou's.
Moss
Mary
Moss
Lou's.
says he misses Tokyo House, and I remember Moss would always talk about Tokyo House, and he'd be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I go get the lobster and filet hibachi, and it's the best." And I never made it there, so I can't.
You never.
I can't miss.
Wow.
Oh,
I can't miss what I never had.
You're missing.
Oh, yeah, you missed out. You missed out. And
Well,
Tim will tell you, we actually went to Tokyo House soon after I came back, and Ken, the owner and cook there, he had a phenomenal memory, like Tress's memory. He could remember people from. It was like, whoa. And Tim will tell you this story. We went there soon after I came back, and Tim's never been there, and so Ken, I maybe visited twice since I was gone 10 years. I maybe visited twice. He remembered me. He remembered we talked like we was old friends. Yada yada yada. And then he goes, Tim, I know you. And he told Tim where he lived, and freaked him out. But Tokyo House, man, that's good eating there.
Was
Hey,
good.
I got another write-in chat question
Sick, Gertie.
from Kyle Kronovic. How much of his hair, how much of Kyle's hair have you made him lose?
A lot. A lot.
Kyle, just call it, bro.
Yeah.
Just
Must
go
be a
shiny.
thing, huh?
Shout out to Kyle though. Kyle's our supervisor, our business manager, and he gets down and dirty sometimes with Alvy and helping us out, and he does a lot for me, and so yeah, shout out to Kyle.
We're gonna leave
Kyle does a lot.
specifics out
Kyle-
then again, aren't we?
What's that?
We're leaving the specifics out again.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Once again,
After dark.
he's losing hair. He's losing hair. I ain't. Which one of us are worried?
Well, wrapping up, guys. We're gonna move on to our next guest, and y'all are welcome to stay on with us or sign off if y'all want. But just last word from each of you, Tim, Alvy, could be about the upcoming season or YSU in general, or any last words you may want to say to the cast.
Alvy, go ahead.
Okay, I'll go. Hey, it was great being on this. It was great, and obviously we could tell stories all night and make this a 24-hour podcast, really. But thank you guys so much for having us. We hope for the best for next year. Obviously this is a very interesting time in college football. It's changed dramatically over the last couple of years, and I think Doug does a good job in managing the personnel. I mean, it's really interesting how a head coaching position has become less about football, more about fundraising and roster management than anything else. It's changed so much, so dramatically, so fast. It's going to be interesting. We went from having somewhere between 1 and 5 kids start mid-year. This year we was at 15, 16, and it's going to be that way from here on out because you see kids that say, oh, I got it in May. I got offers from Louisville. I got offers from Toledo. I got offers from all these bigger schools, and then the portal opens up in December, and all of a sudden those high school kids don't have offers because they can fill in the void right away instead of trying to build a player up. So, I think you'll see us get more better high school players in the future just because of what's being left on the table by the bigger schools. But on the same token, we can develop those players and lose them after 2 years. So it's going to change the face of it. Changes everything about college football and how you got to operate.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having us on. It's been fun. I love you guys. You know that. I just want to send a shout out to the kids that work for me: Kieran, Tess, Maddie, Zoe, and Leanne. Because without those awesome people, that I would be lost. Because I deal with almost 19 sports, and it's gets hectic sometimes. And they have my back, and they make me be able to do my job. But it's been a pleasure. I just love it. I love interacting with former players and former coworkers. I love it when you guys come to the equipment room, except for when you leave with soft stuff. But it's all good, and I appreciate it. Had fun, guys. Thanks.
It's just our back pay for all that NIL we missed out on. All right,
Right.
just consider it that. And then I was fully prepared for you guys to be sitting in your office doing the show together. So maybe next time we can do it in the stadium show. What do you
We
think?
should do a podcast from the equipment room. Maybe that's the podcast in the room.
No,
Yeah.
but seriously, I love you guys. I always make it a point to get to the stadium early, walk through the tailgate. I spend 20 minutes in the tailgate, and I'll spend an hour in the equipment room with you guys before the game. So,
It's because you're eating.
well, you guys got the spread.
They do
got
have the spread though.
You got the
They
buffalo. You got the buffalo chicken dip. You got the Taco Bell. What else you got? You got hot dogs and popcorn and whatever else.
Pizza, they got everything.
My
Everything.
nephew ate about half the thing of popcorn the one time I took him in there.
Oh my God, that's right. He
Yeah,
had a blast.
we
that
love
day.
you guys, man. Thanks for being on, man. You guys are the
Thanks
best.
for coming on, and thank you for everything y'all do. And just one more thing is, coaches, unfortunately, head coaches especially, they come and they go. And for all the players of all generations, y'all have really been kind of the face for when we come home and come to the stadium. Everyone knows you guys from all different generations of the football program, and I appreciate y'all being the face to welcome us back and kind of really someone we can go to back at the stadium, even though we come back and there's no coaches we know anymore. So thank you for that too, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate
we're
it,
going
guys.
to
Thank you.
transition here.
Appreciate
All right,
you.
take care.
Thanks.
Take care.
Going over to Curdy to introduce our next guest.
Yeah, I just want to give our boy Metz a little bit of give him some credit for being so patient with us throughout this whole show. Metz, we appreciate you being here.
I
But
enjoyed their stories.
yeah, it's pretty cool to have him. But 2008 grad of Ursuline, 2012 grad of Youngstown State. How he got on the show with us today was he won our FCS bracket challenge. Honestly, Michael Metzinger, a guy that Kyle and I are getting to know a little bit more as we see him throughout the fall, probably knows more about Youngstown State athletics than anybody who's regularly on this podcast, including myself, Sal, Kyle, and Coach Kopp. Honestly, you're more in tune than we are sometimes, and when we love hearing from you. But the winner of our FCS bracket challenge, a Youngstown State person through and through. He got 23 out of 26 FCS playoff selections correct, which is insane to only miss 3 games. But happy to have him on the show. It's been a long time coming, man. Welcome to the show, Michael Metzinger. How you doing, man?
Good, Kurt. Thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so if you could, Metz, just take a minute or less, talk a little bit about yourself. What are your ties to YSU? What are your ties to the Youngstown State program? And I know that you're taking away. You probably were going to go to that men's basketball game tonight, so thank you for sacrificing that.
I don't know about that one.
But what's it like being a YSU fan, and what's your life like today?
Yeah, so life's good. Happily married to my wife Ashley. We live here in Boardman. We got 2 boys, Aaron, who's 6, and Anthony, who's 4, and grooming them to be the next generation of Penguin fans. And Youngstown State's always played a big role in my life growing up. My dad, where he works at APO Horo, I know they're big supporters of Youngstown State. So kind of through, his work there at APO Horo, really kind of got introduced a lot to Youngstown State football and basketball. But, a lot of memories growing up, my dad taking me, in the 90s, I'll name drop Matt DeVecchio, his family. I know he played in the early 90s. They have a big tailgate. They've continued. So I remember, going to breakfast tailgates, all that growing up. So, Youngstown State's always had an important, place, in my life, and, proud graduate from there. And today, now have the ability to kind of give back a little bit and sit on the board for the Penguin Club, which is kind of like the booster arm for Youngstown State. So, a proud Penguin here.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
Hey, we're probably going to do a show ourselves in July and August, recapping last year and our takeaway, and then talking to 2024. I know the schedule is just posted up and released, but we talk all the time to each other. Love to get an outsider's perspective, because I know you're a big fan of the program and you follow the team, if not as well, better than we do. So I'd love to get your perspective on what you thought about that 2023 season and our run to the postseason, and knowing who's leaving and who's coming in. What's your expectations for the 24 season?
Yeah, so to recap 2023, I think 2022 ended with on a sour note. We went 7-4. We thought we had the opportunity to get in the playoffs. It didn't happen, and I know you guys talked about it. A lot of people talked about how many times we were on the bubble over the years. We never made it in, and so I thought it was real important for this squad with the guys we had coming back, that we had to find a way to make the playoffs. And we put ourselves in a little tough position there with some of those losses, at Northern Iowa and at South Dakota, and you begin to ask yourself, oh, here we go again. We're gonna be left out. But fortunately, we found a way. The stars kind of aligned that final weekend of the season, and we made it to the playoffs, which I think is really important for this team, for this coaching staff, and really just the program as a whole. You guys, like when you were there, were certainly very good and capable of winning multiple games in the playoffs. But the bracket I know was smaller then, and unfortunately you were left out a couple times. But if you think back, we've only, outside of 2006 and I think 2016, we've only been to the playoffs a few times since Tressel left. So, which kind of has contributed to, I know you guys talked about it, the lack of fans and all that. And so I just think we have to build on this, and making the playoffs is a good step, in the right direction as it relates to 2023.
'24. What are you thinking? Just you're saying build on it, as in if we got to go back to the playoffs.
Well, easier said than done when your defense gets gutted. And we had our issues last year, especially on the defensive side. If you look at the stats, we were good against the run, had some issues against the pass, and Villanova had their way with us, it seemed. And then you lose 4, 5, 6 guys, some of which go to Power 5 schools. It's Tim and Alvy were talking about it's a crazy time right now in just college athletics with NIL and the transfer portal, and those guys, give them credit. I can't blame them. You hate to see them go, but I'm sure that they're doing all right for themselves going to the Power 5. But a lot of uncertainty, and you lose guys in the portal, and then you got to find a way to reload in the portal. And so remains to be seen. And then I would say the other big question mark is that quarterback position. We had Mitch Davidson, who did an outstanding job for us, and we have Bo Brungard, and I'm an Urson guy, so I'll mention Brady Shannon as well. And I know we have a couple other guys, so that QB competition is going to be really important this year. So I think we got some good talent elsewhere, but the defense and the QB position to me are the biggest question marks for next year.
DK.
Yeah. Mike, thanks for being on the show. It's cool to have you on, and I know your family. I know your mom and your dad, and so many other people in your family. You guys are a great family, Youngstown through and through. So it's cool to have you on the show and get a little perspective. You're involved with the Penguin Club, I think, as most people are aware, or maybe not as well. And so I kind of have a two-part question for you. You know, obviously you're a big fan, involved with things with the program, or all of our programs, that is, especially from the Penguin Club side. What do you think is the biggest need for our athletic department going forward? You know, if so, one question there, maybe what that biggest need is going forward. And is there a certain, I know you don't want to single a certain team out at YSU, but maybe you do. Is there something you're most passionate about of one of the teams? So if those two questions I could throw out you.
Sure. So I think that's a great question. That first one, especially. You know, I know Kyle with Leiden Oil, and they share loads with a few other businesses, including Ohoro. You know, been to some games sitting outside. I have season tickets outside, but also was upstairs. And some of those games upstairs, you know, the loges are filled to capacity, and you look out, and the fans are nowhere to be seen. So it seems to me like, you know, we have a great support from the business community, and you know, they talk about NIL, and I think, you know, like on the, you know, the Horizon League, we're like #1 in NIL money's coming in. And I think we were, even from what I heard at one of our recent Penguin Club meetings, you know, maybe tops in the Missouri Valley as well on the NIL side. So it seems like we got the support of the business community. Those loges seem to be filled up every week, but, you know, we need to get the fans back. And, you know, again, like I said, you know, only making the playoffs. Now it's 3 years over, 23 seasons since Jim Tressel was here. All while the team down in Columbus, who I'm not the biggest fan of, I'll be the first to admit, you know, has become really an elite program. And it really kind of became an elite program once Tressel went there. And so, you know, in that time where maybe we've had some decent teams, but, you know, not that consistent success, they're doing great down there. And it seems like for some fans, I don't want to speak, you know, I don't want to generalize too much here, but it seems like a lot of fans, the allegiance is with Ohio State and following them. But, you know, you got to get out there. You got a Division I athletic program in our own backyard. And, you know, I would just encourage, you know, fans, get out there and support what you have. And you know, if you think back, you know, those Tressel years, the crowds that came out, they were, you know, tremendous. And I remember 2006, we had some big crowds, and there's been other big crowds over the years, but there's nothing like seeing, you know, Stambaugh Stadium with, you know, 17, 18, 19,000 people. And just seems like, especially since COVID, it just, you know, the fans aren't coming out. So we gotta get the fan base, the casual fan out there again. And I think that's really important. And, you know, I'll add, you know, on the basketball side, the last couple of years, they've had a great deal of success. They started to win and win consistently, and their crowds have been phenomenal. You know, I think last year, you know, Akron and Kent and Duquesne are perennial mid-major powers, and from what I read, our attendance was better than theirs. So, you know, I think the fans will start showing up, but we just got to be consistent. You can't go this next year and go, you know, 3-9. You know, you got to find a way to build on a playoff run and keep that happening, keep that going moving forward. And Dan, to your other question, I would still say, you know, football's my thing. As much as I've enjoyed going to basketball games over all these years, just you know, a lot of great games I've been to on the football side. I've had the opportunity to travel with the team, you know, a few times. I've been to Western Illinois. I know what you guys are talking about there. It's not the best facility. You know, had the privilege of going to South Dakota State. That's a great place, and, you know, to explore those towns and all that. But I would say, you know, football for sure is my #1 passion.
Well, thanks for those answers. You have great insight, especially with the Penguin Club. I'm sure maybe you could keep us informed of what's going on there a little bit. And but we'd be remiss if we didn't point out Coach Calhoun tonight. You know, they won again, 22 wins. They're 22-9. They're going to probably be finished. Are they going to be in second, Mets, for the conference?
Second, yeah.
And then, so we could see Coach Calhoun has done an amazing job here. He's made our basketball program, men's basketball program, relevant for the first time in forever. So now we got to try and win, 3? If we can win 3 here in this tournament, we get in the dance, I believe. Yeah. I think that's kind of how it is. But so kudos to Coach Calhoun and all our listeners out there. If you don't know what's going on with our men's basketball program, you better clue in, because Coach Calhoun's just been, he's unbelievable. Guy's unbelievable. Yeah. So thanks, Mets, for those answers.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it.
All right, Mets. You could totally be critical of our fans. Like I am very critical of our fans, especially when our game time lines up with Ohio State. You just call it like you see it on this show, and we'll be good to go. All right.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm on
They
board.
absolutely do need to be better, and I do agree that the business aspect, the business fans in the loges, the stadium could be completely empty and the loges will be booked solid. But Mets, I just want to appreciate everything that you offer to the show. That we mentioned, I before I knew who you were, I would get these DMs on my Instagram from We Are Youngstown. I'm like, I don't know who this is, but he's dropping me great little nuggets of information about whether it's a history with the team that they're playing that week, or statistics, or numbers across the country, just numbers. And I was talking to Kronovich today, and it makes sense. He says, you're a numbers guy. So definitely someone that I want to see back on this show and be a part. And I know you will continue to contribute to the show behind the scenes, but someone that's in Youngstown, would love to go to some spring ball with you, kind of see how the team's going to unfold. But with that being said, are there any like YSU memories particularly that stick out to you, that's like a home game or something that, like, whether it's a game in the 90s or something that just grabs you and it's like, this is my team? And people always ask me like, oh, Cyril, are you mad Ohio State lost this weekend, blah blah blah? And I was like no, man, like, they didn't recruit me, I didn't play for them. Like, sure, it sucks, but like, I don't it doesn't ruin my weekend. Whereas like when the Penguins are beating you and I by double digits multiple times in the game and we lose, then I'm mad Saturday night, I'm mad Sunday morning, I'm mad Monday, and I don't want to talk about it. So is there like a moment in YSU history that just got you hooked?
Yeah. Well, at first, I appreciate, the nice things you said. Happy to come on whenever you guys like. I would say there's probably two games that really kind of stick out to me. The 2006 game, it was a playoff game at home. ESPN2 is James Madison. And I think Tim or Alvy mentioned Marcus Mason. That team had some great talent. I know Tom Zetz, a local guy from Boardman, was our quarterback. They had players, across the board. And I don't know, Sal, were you a part of that Haycock staff then, or when did you?
Oh, yeah, 2 years, 08 and 09.
Okay, so you weren't there for that game, but it was a great game. First half back and forth, back and forth. Second half, James Madison kind of took over. And what was interesting about that game, they brought a large amount of fans over, and I don't know if Dan, you probably remember, they had like streamers all over the east side of the stands, and it was a great atmosphere, and it was a great showcase on national TV. But I think they were up like 10 or 11, maybe early fourth quarter, and again, kind of those things where some guys made some big plays. I remember like Tom Zetz had a real long pass. I forget, it was like 3rd and 15, 3rd and 20. They were like at their own goal line, and he completed a pass, and Marcus Mason had some great runs that game, but they found a way to win that game on national TV. And I know that was a big moment because that was the first time for Coach Haycock to make the playoffs as a head coach. So, that was a big thing, and the community came out and supported the team. And then I would also mention when you guys were there, I don't know if it was 2011 or 2020 or 2012. I think it was my birthday, actually, the game at Pitt. I remember kind of going into that game thinking, I'm like, we got some talent, anything could happen. And you didn't just beat them. You really just took complete control of that game. And it was interesting throughout the game to just kind of watch the Pitt fans depart. And there may have even been some rain that game, but you could just watch the place. That's just, the fans just leave as you guys, beat them, whatever, by a couple scores. So I would say those two games in particular, that James Madison game in 06, and then when you guys upset Pitt that year, were two great ones to be at.
Awesome, man. Hey, I got some ideas. Chat's got some ideas on how we can get some fans in the stands. We'll have to link up at the MBR for a beer and see whose pocket we got to pick to get that done. But
I'm all for it. Got to
yeah,
make
the
it
best
happen.
part about the best part about the pick game is their thing is they at the end of the third quarter they sing "Sweet Caroline," right? So
Oh yeah.
So there were some fans, the student sections were like hanging out. End of the third quarter, they sing the song, and boom, we were up 17 points. The stadium leaves at the beginning of the fourth quarter, and we played. It was like playing in front of a YSU home crowd in the fourth quarter at Heinz Field. So that was definitely a special game for the program.
All right, hey Mets. So, being from outside of Youngstown, I always am fascinated by people I've gotten to know over the years from Youngstown who were really born and raised there. If you could talk a little bit, I know at least while I was at YSU, we had so many guys come in from Mooney. All you heard about was Mooney, Mooney, Mooney. If you could talk a little bit more about Ursuline, I know Alan Jones was probably the biggest guy that we had coming out of Ursuline while we were there. Talk a little bit about Ursuline. What was that culture like? What is that program? Are you still connected there? And what's the Holy War like with? I know we're not allowed to say Holy War anymore, but Holy War with Mooney.
Yeah, no, great question. So, growing up, actually, before I really took an interest in college football, I grew up loving high school football. My parents were, I'm kind of like one of those Ursuline families. All four of my grandparents went there. My parents, their siblings, my brothers, a lot of cousins, and so Ursuline's always been an important part of my life. And it was a great place. And growing up, I was a soccer guy. I never played football. I mean, you guys could see me. I'm not built to play football whatsoever. But I had the opportunity my sophomore, I think, year. They needed a kicker, so they kind of recruited me off the football team or off the soccer team to kick, and got to kick my junior year, and then my senior year we had a great season. We played 15 weeks, went to the state championship game, ultimately lost, but just to have that ability, somebody who grew up watching Ursuline football all those years, it meant a lot to me. And it was interesting. I like to think our senior class, which, my role as a kicker, I like to think was a very small part. I benefited off the success and everything else those guys did. But even though we lost in the state championship game, I remember our head coach, who's Dan Reardon, who actually his son Matthew Reardon just transferred in from Miami of Ohio this offseason. He's a great wide receiver, great kid, comes from a great family, and I have high expectations for him. But I remember him on the bus saying something to the effect of like, you guys set the framework, but we're going to be back here next year. And sure enough, the next 3 years, those guys go to state, win it 3 straight years after that. And things were really, really rolling at that point. Our coach Reardon, he went off to Colorado for a few years. Then he came back to Ohio. He was at Canton McKinley, who's, a notorious power for some time before coming back to Ursuline. So, I'm still a little bit connected because I know a lot of those guys, a lot of the coaching staff that's there was there when I was there. But, thinking of some guys from when I was at Ursuline, Roland Smith was one of our guys, one of our coaches at Ursuline. He was at Ursuline for a long time prior to coming to Youngstown State. He was a great guy. You mentioned Alan Jones, a great running back. He had a hell of a year for us, my senior year, and then the year after. Dale Peterman, I know, is another one on the DB side. He was a hell of a player. And then prior to you guys, Louis Arizari, who started at Ohio State and then transferred to Youngstown State. He was another one that I could think of over all those years, who was at Youngstown State. But, you asked about that Holy War. Unfortunately, when I was there, we didn't have like any success whatsoever. We were 0-4 against them. For much of the 2000 era, they just completely dominated us. They had players galore, and I'm sure Dan, you know, like you had, Marlowe, the McCarthy brothers, you had Beecham, Delicio, you could Venipal, you could just go through the list. They had player after player, D1, Power 5 caliber players, and unfortunately they took it to us for a number of years, including my senior year. But fortunately for now, the rivalry's kind of turned in Urson's favor of late. I think we've won like 5 in a row in the series, and things are going well there. But yeah, we didn't have much success against Mooney, but those guys were good. I remember growing up going to a lot of those Urson Mooney games, and Mooney, by and large, was always the better program, and always hoping for an upset, and just Mooney always found a way to win. They would, Dan would probably know that they would run that play on offense, left and right. They'd run it down your throat, eat up the clock, and be the fourth quarter, and they would pretty much hold the ball the whole time, and you couldn't do anything about it. So unfortunately, again, when I was there, we didn't have any success against them, but things have turned for the better now for my alma mater.
Yeah, well, Kurt, to help you out, the Mets, Kurt got it back on Ray Venipal, I believe, the night we went down the pit there and got him. So, and Ray was a heck of a player, obviously. But Donald and Marky B were probably happy after that game. But Danny Reardon's a heck of a coach. Ursulin's rolling. My parents are Ursulin grads, so nice. That's a cool to hear you talk about the culture and stuff there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned Venipal. I guess real quick. Again, I was a kicker. They never taught me anything about tackling or anything like that, when I was at Ursuline. I remember, Roland Smith, he was a weight guy. He always focused on us, just work on your legs. That's all we care about. And I remember, I got 2 quick stories. The first of which was, Easter break or something like that. For some reason, I had this idea, let me go to the weight room. Not that, again, you guys could see, I benched with the freshmen my senior year, just to give you an idea. Anyways, I'm over there, decided to start benching by myself for some reason. There's like nobody there, and I'm struggling. I don't know what I have on the bar, and I hear Roland Smith from across the room. He'd call me, Kick, you need help over there? I'm like, oh no, I'm okay. And sure, I wasn't okay, so I'm like dropping the weights left and right. So I remember that. I'm trying to remember the other story. Oh, Venipal. So when it comes to tackling, my tackling skills were horrific. I remember a game at Warren Harding. Our kick coverage wasn't the best. This guy comes right through a huge hole. I'm with him. I could just throw my body at him, but again, nobody taught me anything. So I tried to do one of these. I end up on the ground. He ended up tiptoeing the sidelines. I hear the fireworks go off at Harding. They score. But my only legitimate tackle, because you mentioned Venipal, was when we played Mooney. And I actually, because I learned from the Harding game, I threw my body at him, and that was my only legitimate tackle. So I like to think I tackled a guy that played D1 football. So
that's awesome.
Well, we all love Coach Roland Smith. He's the man.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Well, Mike, thanks for coming on. Again, congrats on the bracket challenge. I know Cyril and I were close to beating you, but shame on us for thinking Montana would beat the Jackrabbits. I guess you were smart enough to pick the Jackrabbits is what made the difference. Love having you on. Love, that you follow the show, whatnot. Any last words or comments, whether it's for the any Penguin football players that listen to the show or the fan base or to anyone at all?
No, I guess, I just want to thank you guys for having me on. And I want to thank you guys for really putting this podcast together. I didn't mention, I run that We Are Youngstown Twitter account, and I follow, especially this past year, I've been trying to follow the media and some of these other markets in the Missouri Valley a lot closer. And, one thing locally is we kind of have that, we're lacking that local sports talk aspect. I know Ron Potesta, you guys might be familiar with from the radio broadcast. He used to have a show, but in terms of local sports talk, there's really not much there. And so you guys, I appreciate you guys putting this together because it kind of fills a void. And, North Dakota State, their media coverage is like that of, a Big Ten school. But there's the other teams I see who have these podcasts, and I'm thinking to myself, like, God, we need something because, all I hear about all day is Ohio State. So, I just want to thank you guys for putting this together. We needed this. And I forget how I even came about, coming across your guys' show, but I was thrilled when you put it on. So I know it takes a lot of time. I know I can tell it's Sal from your emails leading up to this. You do put a lot of work in. I'm sure all you guys do with your prep. So I'm just grateful for that as a Penguin fan and as a Penguin supporter. Keep up the great work. We appreciate it as YSU fans in this YSU community.
Thanks, Mike. And that's how we started that 22 crazy season where we had these miracle wins. I would be texting Cop or Kurt, and I was just thinking to myself, I got to listen to a podcast to like recap this, to hear what everyone's saying. And we didn't have one. And I kept saying, we're doing one. And then finally I said, screw it. I don't know what we're doing, but we're going to record one show. This was in like June or May of last year. And it was like,
I got 5 minutes heads up.
Yeah. Cop was out that night. I said, Cyril, this is what we're doing. You want to join? He said, yeah, why not? And that's how he got involved. And we recorded. I was like, that's pretty good. Let's just post it. And then, the feedback took off, and the following star, just like you said, Mike, it was a void that I'm glad we filled it. And I invite anyone else to do a podcast about Penguin football too, to promote the program. We won't look at them as rivals at all. We look at it the more that we talk about the program, the better off the program is. But thank you again, brother.
And Mike, be ready, because I'm the old guy on this show. So it's either you or DJ Moss that are probably going to get brought in, because they're probably going to retire me. I'm getting old. I'm too old for viewers. So
Cop, you're the only
ratings go down when I'm on.
This.
So be ready, because you might be getting drafted. You just never know. I told my man Moss Man, I said, be ready. You just don't know. I mean, I was just glad I made it to Kurt's Hall of Fame. I mean, when you're old like me, you just hope you could get a couple more in. So it was, man. Yeah, thanks.
DK, you're the only one trying to retire yourself.
I'm smart. You got to know when you got to know. You got to know when you got to go. So
you and DJ got all the Youngstown connects. Between you, DJ, and Mets, I think we got Youngstown on lock on having the connections there. So
who knows? I might be talking Mets and Mossman into a separate show. We'll be going. We'll be having a little.
Hey, no, that's going to put us out.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
Not compete with us, brother. Let's transition.
What are we transitioning to? We're going to be the next.
Before we shut things down, just quick over to Kurt and Kyle. I don't know if you have any more news from the YouTube or anything from the Instagram to share before we check out for the night.
You talking to me?
Curdy or Kyle?
Yeah, so I'll give you a second to look. The only thing I got this week, guys, is I threw out the questions just looking at the schedule that we have for 2024. Obviously, this is a topic for another time, and Mets, feel free to weigh in, man. But that schedule looks tough. They got some tough road games at some tough times. A lot of our viewers are thinking 8 or 9 wins is possible again. I think we max out at 8 or 9 wins, and we can make a run, but it's going to be a tough schedule in 2024, just looking ahead.
Yeah. So, Kurt, don't bring up the schedule and get me.
Hey, that's my IG.
Don't grind my gears right before
my IG
bed.
Stuff going. Everybody's got 8 or 9 wins. I told you 7's mine, but we'll see.
Dude, all right. I'm gonna preview. A little tease for the fans. I think 6 wins is likely.
Ooh.
So everyone, y'all need to buckle up. Anyways, the chat's got the stadium ideas where everyone wants cheaper tickets and cheap beer. So Crum wants different promotions. The promotions throughout the stadium have been the same for years, so he feels like those are a little stale. So
that's a good point.
I don't know who this is. Is this our boy Rob? Call me. You got my number now. Rob Schmidt. Let's go over some promotions because we got to get those babies updated. Once again on Y-Town Penguin podcast, I call it like I see it. I want fans in the stands. I want this program to succeed. And if you can't take constructive criticism, I'm sorry.
And that's what grinds Kyle's gears.
And that's what grinds Sterl's gears.
Love it.
We're going to shut down
Hopefully
for
they
the
let
night
me in the stadium when I come in.
We are long overdue. We will be back all off season and recapping the 2023 as Mike kind of gave us a teaser of his thoughts. We will follow up and preview 2024. Do have a lot of special guests lined up for the off season. If you'd like to be on the show and part of it and be a guest, we invite you. Please reach out to our Instagram, Whitetown Penguin Podcast. Follow the Instagram and please interact with Kurt on his posts on that. But again, this is the Youngstown Penguin Football Podcast. Thank you again, Mike, Tim, and Alvy for joining us tonight. But
Thanks, Mets.
But that is Kyle Stroh, that is Dan Kopp, that is Kurt Hess, and I am Sal Guardo signing off. Thank you again for listening to the Youngstown Penguin Football Podcast. And as always, go Penguins.